and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest-running show on entrepreneurship. I'm Shireen Bhan. Here's wishing all our viewers and our Young Turks community a very happy New Year, very happy 2014. Now, two things stood out about investing in 2013. One, the steady flow of deals, with at least a couple of startups receiving funding practically every week of the year. Here's a quick look at some numbers. 2012 saw 200 deals worth over $700 million being sealed. In comparison, in just the first 3 quarters of 2013, we've seen over 190 deals being done and $380 million being invested. One of the takeaways has been the deal sizes much smaller, which also leads us to the second trend, the absolute burst of activity in the accelerator and incubator space. Even new accelerators in India, like 500 startups, T-Labs, Chiron and Venture Nursery, saw an average of 2 graduating batches, and the year closed with announcements by online payment giant PayPal and retailer Target announcing the launch of local accelerators in India. Now, as part of our Young Turks tradition, we welcome the new year with a panel discussion to spot the big ideas for 2014. Today, our panelists represent the old and the new school. Joining us, Padmaja Ruparel, president of the Indian Angel Network, one of India's first and Asia's largest angel networks. Next up, an entrepreneur turned investor, Gaurav Kachru, who co-founded 5 Ideas, an early-stage fund that invests in internet and mobile startups. Anand Lunia, former partner with Seed Fund, who founded IndiaQuotient in 2012 and invests primarily at the seed stage in tech, internet, education and retail ventures. And joining us from Mumbai, Gautam Gandhi, who keeps a close eye on the entrepreneurial ecosystem from his perch as the head of new business development at Google India. Thank you very much for joining us here on this Young Turks special. Happy 2014 to all of you. Padmaja, let me start by asking you, at the start of the year, there was a sense of gloom and doom, especially on the back of that startup tax, the much talked about and the much controversial startup tax. But it hasn't turned out to be a bad year after all, 2013.
That's true, Shireen. Actually, when we look back today at the end, in the 12th month of the year, I think we've not done too badly. I think the startup tax still exists, and it's
so you haven't made inroads with SEBI. Your point of view has been taken on board. They've tried to accommodate some of the concerns, but they've got their own limitations and constraints.
Absolutely, and I think they have tried to be very, very accommodative, but at the end of the day, SEBI is a pooled vehicle organization, and angels do invest individually and co-invest. So it's a bit of a small round peg in a square hole sort of a scenario.
And Gaurav, let me get you in on first this business of regulation, because there was a hue and cry about how regulation is anti-startup at the start of the year. But that doesn't seem to have impacted deal activity, and it certainly doesn't seem to have dampened enthusiasm in the investor community as well. How do you read what's happened?
I actually see this as probably one of the best years for small deal sizes. I see a plethora of young VCs like myself, Anand. Fundamentally, in the deal space, I think there's a rich seed of innovation that has got sown in the Indian DNA, which was missing a couple of years back. Today, when we look at businesses in the space, we're seeing them 4 to 6 months about the same ideation vis-a-vis the West, which gives us a really strong flavor. And good businesses will attract money irrespective.
But what do you think has changed? What do you think has enabled this transformation to take place?
Honestly, it's a generation change. It's people coming in and looking at the world very differently from when you and I did when we graduated. I think the opportunity has become real. The cost of a startup has come down to an absolutely negligible amount.
Anand, would you agree? I mean, it's not just the ease of doing business, it's also the cost of doing business, which has perhaps given this movement such an impetus.
Social acceptance has increased, right? And another thing, I mean, a lot of these revolutions, and I think a revolution is brewing in India today, in terms of entrepreneurial activity, which is more tech, and non-revenue based. Right? The earlier horizon thing was like you pick an entrepreneurial activity, right? Borrow some money and start your cash flow and profits from like day 1, month 1, month 2, right? Now people are willing to invest like 3 years, 4 years into
7
something.
years, 10 years,
10 years, right?
Yeah.
And some of these people have seen success. In US, the revolution was done by Microsoft, ex-Microsoft people, ex-Yahoo people, ex-Cisco people. Here what you're seeing is, after the last 3-4 years, you have ex-Flipkart people coming back now, ex-Make-My-Trip people coming out,
ex-Naukri people coming out. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And they are starting up, and they know what it takes to build, and they are patient, and socially it's acceptable. And of course, the cost of doing business in the tech space has reduced significantly.
What I would like to add, I think the other thing that has happened in the ecosystem, a lot of people have stepped out to do mentoring, to become mentors. There are a lot of people from the corporate world who are doing this on the side. The corporates are coming in with accelerators. Microsoft, of course, has been one of the early ones, but there are a lot of other corporates which are coming up, and that has sort of brought a different level of acceptance also in the career path for people, and that has sort of got people to get going faster, quicker, and a lot of capital expense has been picked up by corporates. So it's a little, and the last thing that I want to add over here, I think entrepreneurs who worked in the corporate world, with the corporates opening up, there is a recognition of what is missing in the solution portfolio. So they are being able to pick up niches and build ventures very quickly.
And I think that is critical, the ability to spot niches and the belief that niches will deliver profits. I think that has been a big change.
When we invested in Redbus in 2007, a very well-known VC, sitting in a suit in Oberoi, commented, "I don't know anybody who travels by bus," and it was supposed to be a very small niche at that point in time, and look where Redbus was, and perhaps
look where Redbus is today,
and look where it'll probably go after 5 years. In fact, the bus travel market in India actually might be much bigger than the air travel market.
Gautam, let me get you in on this conversation. I know you do a lot of trend spotting. I think you got one wrong, and you believe that Flipkart would have actually listed in 2013. It hasn't happened. It doesn't look like it will happen anytime soon, at least by the looks of it at this point in time. Do you want to attempt Trend Spotting 2014?
Mobile is going to be the biggest driver in 2014. Along with that, on mobile specifically, I think we're going to look at entertainment and digital media as being one of the first things that people do on mobile and on these connected devices.
Let me ask you, Gautam, for a quick take as far as what you made of the year gone by in terms of valuations. I mean, most people thought that we had reached the top or the peak as far as valuations are concerned. But, awe-inspiring valuations for the likes of Snapdeal, Flipkart. Your quick comment on valuations, and that'll get the rest of the panel to comment on that as well.
I think we're seeing a lot of deals on the early stage. But as these companies mature, we're not seeing many of them progress as much as we'd like to see. So the number of deals is actually much less, and the demand is much higher. So I think we're going to continue to see higher valuations, especially by the bigger funds and by the bigger investors.
Anand,
the general public is amazed too much by valuations, right?
Because when you say no sign of profitability, but $1 billion company.
Allow me to, I did a research, because somebody asked me this question on Twitter about how can you compare Myntra and Jabong to Shoppers Stop, right?
Yeah. Or even Just Dial, for instance. I mean, look at
I did a comparison. By the way. In 20 years of existence, or maybe more, Shoppers Stop is today at 2,400 crores of revenue. Myntra might reach there next year itself, within 5 years of existence, right? So anybody who's investing in 200% annual growth, right, cannot meet those kind of profitability numbers.
I think the one change that I think will happen is valuations currently have been on user base and on how many users you're getting online. I think what I do see with the money coming in and a lot of shift happening to actually cash flows and dividends. And that is going to be a new peg that I think, a new trend that I think will come back in the new year in terms of valuation and growth. Because we are seeing this
continue to be cash guzzlers. There is no visibility of profitability
that's the point.
Anytime soon.
So I think that shift we should be seeing, because at the end of the day, if the companies don't throw out profits and they don't make money, how are you going to be able to sustain those valuations going forward? And how are new companies going to be able to raise money?
I completely disagree. I mean,
I disagree.
Fundamentally, the valuation is not for the cash flows they're throwing out today. It's for the property they're creating today. It's for the customer recall that they have. Absolutely, you're betting on the future in a big way.
Amazon was never highly profitable for the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
We know that,
and
right?
they just lost money.
What is Flipkart from the public?
We're only talking about online plays. I think there are offline plays that we need to take into consideration, and the trends will be a balance of both.
I am amazed at VCs investing in offline plays, first of all, right?
Gautam, you want to jump in on a little bit of a disagreement that we have going on here in Delhi?
Yeah, I think these markets are going to be winner-take-all markets. You're only going to have the number 1 and number 2 guy exist.
Yeah.
And that's why they're highly valued. And we're going to have so much consolidation happening in the e-commerce space. I think I heard something like last year there were almost 1,000 e-commerce companies in existence that were funded, and that's going to whittle down. We're going to have 1 or 2 really going to make it over the next 5-10 years. And that's why these companies get the valuations that they get, and that's why they're justifiable.
on this point of consolidation, because again, I've heard this business of consolidation for a while now, but are we actually just going to see a lot of these guys who don't actually bring in the money, don't have any visibility in terms of profitability, don't get the revenues, just fall by the wayside, or are we actually going to see actual M&A take place?
There is going to be M&A, Shireen.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I'd just like to bring this. I don't think it's the e-commerce market is done so far. So we've got Flipkart, which is dominating.
Yeah.
But if you look at the US, there's space for an Amazon, and there's space for a Fab.com. And there's space for somebody else. And the gazillion players that constantly keep innovating around the e-commerce cycle.
Do you see a lot of global giants, whether it's e-commerce or otherwise, Padmaja, making a play on India in 2014?
I do think so. I think we have a very large market here, and this is one way of accessing the user base, customer base, and getting into the large market.